Good evening. It has been a wonderful day and so much inspiration oozing out from all the wonderful speakers that have come on the stage before me. So as a small token of my appreciation, can I ask you all to give a loud round of applause for them? One of the primary reasons I continue to do TEDx events is the inspiration I draw every time I'm here as part of this. I have spoken a couple of times about my own journey, and so while that was very easy to do, I thought, let me try and relate that to something I've never spoken before. The story of magic itself, magic through the ages. Today, magic is generally seen as Harry Potter, right? Things were not such, and of course, the most recent Doctor Strange. But it was not always so, because for some of us, growing up years back before the internet era, we had this imagination of what a magician was. A magician was a person who perhaps had some powers. For example, when I remember the first show I saw, the magician came on stage, and from his pocket he sort of took out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 cards. And from those 6 cards, the magician many times sort of took out 1, 2, 3 cards, threw them away. I don't know why it was always 6 and 3, but what was fascinating for me was that he then showed that he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 cards. I don't know about you, but I clapped. What was even more fascinating was that he didn't do this once, he did this twice, thrice, he did this so many times, each time just showing he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 cards, and every single time taking out 1, 2, 3 cards, throwing them away, and still showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 cards. Thank you. Now, I was young, and when I mean young, I was a child. I was 5 years old, and this captured my imagination. I thought, wouldn't it be fascinating if I could just get in front of any, actually I didn't think of an audience at that point in time. If I could take any object as simple as, say, cards like this, and let's say I could just throw away as many as I want from it. And then still I could sort of show that I had a certain number of cards, right? But sadly, I never learned that magic. So I don't know that magic, so otherwise I would have shown it to you. And you know, while that person here was Dante, the quintessential look of a magician, we had somebody like Harry Houdini, who literally shed off his clothes, broke the classic image of a magician, and came about to be the most famous magician in history. Over 100 years back is what most of the things he did. And we still remember him as primarily the first, or rather the only magician. So much so if somebody escapes from a jail for real, the headlines carry, he did a Houdini. But magic has a very, very rich history, a very long history. The first documented history of magic goes back to the 18th to 16th century BC, which is 5,000 years back. It appears in the Westcar Papyrus, where a performer called Dedi performed in front of Pharaoh Cheops. There are tomb inscriptions, 2500 BC, which show 2 performers performing something which is said to be the oldest magic trick in the world, the cups and balls. There are others who say they were just making bread. But at least in 1400s, there have been clear indications of the cups and balls effect. This is a world famous painting by Bosch. The first books of magic were written in the 1500s. The first known book called Discovery of Witchcraft. Sadly, it exposed magic. Isn't it funny? The first ever book on magic basically tells people how magic is performed. It followed 1700s, early 1800s, similar things. Why? Because magic was seen to be so powerful, so strong, that the moment people saw it, they started calling them psychics, mediums, witches, warlocks. And so it was important to sort of call out the bad people. This is a wonderful book written very recently, which actually talks about all the magic between 1400s to 1950s. But the most famous quote of magic, Clarke's 3 laws, is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And it was true. We all talk about Deep Blue beating Garry Kasparov as being one of the moments. The Great Turk was an automata created in the 1770s. And it played all around Europe and America. And it actually played against Napoleon and defeated Napoleon in a game of chess. It is said that when Napoleon tried to cheat, this automata threw all the cards of the pawns away. It is another thing that there was no technology involved. You had Robert Houdin, who performed the enchanted orange tree, which was intricate clockwork, which made a tree sprout an orange, which could then be handed out to somebody, and they could eat it. You had immense use of technology way ahead of the way people thought technology could be used. The light and heavy chest being an example where it was around the time electromagnets were being created. So Houdin was hired by the Emperor of France to sort of go into the Middle East and prove that Western civilization was better. He just called all the chieftains and said, call your most strongest person, I'm going to keep this small box here, pick it up. Nobody was able to. So magicians have always figured ways of using technology in ways technologists and scientists themselves do not quite fathom. By the way, the intricate clockwork that we talked about has been performed in India since centuries. This is a picture from the late 1800s, but this effect actually goes back multiple centuries in India, and it's called the enchanted mango tree, where there is no technology involved. They just take a seed, plant it right in front of you, the seed sprouts and then grows into a plant, and then the plant becomes a shrub, and from the shrub is a mango, and they hand out the mango for you to eat. And I have seen this performed in non-mango seasons. And I'm wondering where and how do they ensure they have a mango? Because the classic rule as a magician is it's basically physics. You can't create it unless it exists. And of course, you can't create it if it does not exist. But perhaps the most original fake news of the world, which went viral in such a way that even today nobody believes. When a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Wiseman of Edinburgh University, released a book that said the Indian rope trick was never performed. Because it's much easier to believe that we have performed the greatest magic ever that every magician around the world copied and performed in their shows. But I'm here essentially to tell you a little about magic. Magicians, right from the case of Dedi, the first known magician, have built their acts, their lives, about making dreams come true. Let me quickly describe what Dedi did in Pharaoh Cheop's court. he had a hen walking around, and he sort of took the hen or a goose, and he chopped the head off, right? And then he put the head back, and it fitted, and the goose walked over again. Decapitation. I mean, yeah, magic originally was very gory, which is why I'm not talking with that slide here. But flying is such a nice dream that we all, humans as such, I mean, before even, our Wright brothers and things, there's this wonderful story of flying and how everybody wanted, and we still want to. I mean, I watched this comedian recently who basically said, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could stand on stage and flex the muscles that were needed in a butt to sort of fly in the air, right? And he was describing Copperfield. Because Copperfield brought that to life. He made flying possible. And we had the occasion of watching him sort of take an audience member and flying around the stage. I mean, I don't want to know how he does it. I want the magic to remain. Similarly, walking on water, it's biblical. It's in Hindu texts. It's in all kind of texts. And the ability to walk on water as Dynamo performed is so immense that you don't want to know how he did it. And that's the essence of magic. That when you perform something so perfectly, so fluidically, merging what you were talking about, the different aspects of technology, engineering, mathematics. I mean, you would be fascinated with the way how magicians use every single knowledge that exists in this world and slightly more to make it into an art, because that is art. And of course, the modern day Houdini, David Blaine, who repeatedly puts his life on the line. And I mean repeatedly puts his life on the line, because he almost died performing this. Because he wanted to perform the most perfect bullet catch ever. And there is a story or a fable in magic that 13 magicians have died performing this on stage. The most famous death is Chung Ling Soo, who used to perform this every single day during the vaudeville acts. And one day, the engineering failed. The bullet was supposed to be stopped before it went out of the pistol. And it went straight at him, and he was plopped, and that was it. He died on stage. He almost did the same thing, but luckily he's still around. And we are always with technology. We are ahead of technology. This is a viral video right now. The many new videos of magic that are going around, which essentially take technology, pitch it against technology, and show that's magic. And that's where the danger of magic today is. Clark said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But today we are in a world where we are all wearing small little gadgets, and we saw some wonderful gadgets earlier, which are invisible to our eyes. And they do so many wonderful things. They are magic. They are enchanted objects, IoT. And in that mode, when you look at it, no matter what I do, for example, I am going to now vanish in a whiff of smoke. I am not. Because you're just going to say, Modi ji does that all the time. It's 3D projection. So that's where we are. We are in a world where at least science, or our imagination of what science can already do, is way beyond what magicians can do. And so, it's time to go back to the founding father of magic, of modern magic, John Eugene Robert Houdin. And remember that the magician is an actor playing the part of a magician. And in a sense, remember that every now and then, magicians have triumphed, magic has triumphed. This effect here, most of you would not even recognize right now, was the first instance of a woman being sawed through on stage. Right? The classic magician, any volunteers? Okay. So, don't ask me why it's always a woman, the story changes in a bit. But this was the first one. And what happened? It It again went viral around the magic fraternity. Everybody started performing it. And then somebody said, yeah, right, I don't see a head, I don't see a leg, I don't even know if that lady is inside it. So magician said, okay, let's improve this. Let's bring the head out and let's bring the legs out. And now let's saw through. And then they said, yeah, but the legs look like wooden. They don't move too much. So then they said, okay, our own Sarkar, the greatest magician India has had, Sarkar, performed this wonderful, wonderful effect of an open sawing. He did this on BBC. And he timed it in such a way, he knew that like my time is running out. He knew when exactly his time is going to run out. And he stopped right after he had cut her in half. BBC lines went ballistic. 1956, it was the telephone lines. And it was like he just killed a person on TV. Of course, they then said, no, it was not. But magicians didn't stop, because then again they said, but there's not too much movement, that there's no separation. You sort of still see that the lady is not separated. And then you had this wonderful clear box sawing where you actually see the leg and you see feet which move. You see the head of the lady this side, the hands are moving, and the magician can sort of walk through and say there's nothing in between. It was a tipping point, if I may. And then there came Copperfield again. He did an open sawing. And it's a most beautiful piece of art in magic, one of the most beautiful pieces of art in magic, because when this whole thing goes wrong and it falls down and he sort of gets cut in half with this industrial sawing blade, they sort of separate out and they turn it around. And so there's this moment when Copperfield looks up and he's looking at his feet, and somebody from the audience screams, "Move the leg!" And then the legs move, right? And then there's this aspect of time reversing itself, Dr. Strange, if you may. And they come back together and everything reverses in time and he walks out. And then there is the wonderful Kevin James thing where the torso actually walks around the stage and hops off, and you've seen others perform this in an open park where the body literally, legs and the heads run off. So magic has, over the years, invented itself, reinvented itself. Every time adversity, challenges have come on. And I am hopeful that we will deliver yet again. And we have survived 5,000 years, and we will survive 5,000 more years, bringing wonder, surprise, and amazement to our audiences. Thank you very much.